Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 1% Tribe. Tonight, we're going to talk about one that goes without saying. It's in a lot of people, the upper back between the shoulders. So as we do this, I want to kind of explain kind of some biomechanics there, so that there are quite a few things you can do. The biggest thing is understanding like the mechanism of why it keeps occurring. Okay, so tonight we're going to go through kind of the why and some good things you can do. I don't have a lot of stretching videos because there's a lot that are like basic that me and you are going to walk through. What I've noticed is in our podcast section, so we do video on here, but I want to make sure that I have a good, explanation of what we're going over, as a video goes too. So that makes it a little tougher because I have to remember to do, hi, Sue. It's nice to see you tonight. But yeah, I want to make sure that I kind of walk through it with words so that my podcast audience has got that. We're up to I'm almost at 4,000 downloads, which is really cool. And 55 subscribers on my Rumble channel. All right. I always push the Rumble channel because I really like it. It gives you basically a nice library of what you can watch if you miss one of these or if it's on there. So I'm going to make sure you're subscribing. Rumble, and some people don't know this, but Rumble is like YouTube, except for it's a little younger in its lifespan. A lot of the one reason I like it is because sometimes, if you knew about four or 5 years ago, there were some subjects I would have liked to talk about. If you would be surprised by this, but vitamin D, C, and zinc was a big flag for talking about COVID or whatever. So now that that's not there, maybe YouTube could be an answer for as well. So if you like watching YouTube, I've always got it on there under Jeremy. I think I got to reword the name of the YouTube channel as well, but I should get that on there. Actually, let me do that too, just so you guys have it. It's Jeremy and Rach on YouTube, Jeremy with an O. So that'll be another cool one. And then the final one is if you like podcasting, or if you like the podcast where you like to listen, go ahead and anything in there says The Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey. It's there. There's lots of different episodes so far. And so I can't remember how many I'm up to. It's been pretty cool. Once I became consistent, like I tell you guys on 1% Tribe, I can't talk about this stuff without being consistent myself. And this is one way I get to learn with you a lot of times. And so tonight we're going to talk about that stuff. So those are all the places you can do it. If you look up The Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey on any of the Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all those, it is on there. So just letting you know that is there. All right. So let's talk about a little info for research. Remember also on Wednesday night, it's going to start looking like 8:30 will be the time. 8:30 at night, we do Whole Health Weekly, where we go through articles like the newest, latest, and greatest health things out there. So I try to find as many good articles out there. We just kind of walk through it. Is it a holistic thing? Is it something your innate intelligence would really like to hear? So here is one that I thought was really important, because you will hear me constantly talk about hydration, right? This big, beautiful. You can see how I use a metal tin. There's a reason for that. Remember the PFAS I talk about a lot on Whole Health Weekly, those little plastics. I like not taking a chance for my water. So I really like, using metal or glass, those kind of things, especially at home. So anyway, so water is not just about hydration. This article goes into, it's actually about, remember this, tissue repair, muscle movement, and cell survival. So it's about the movement of your cells throughout. When you're hydrated, things are moving and lubricated, essentially. And if you're dehydrated, a lot of things start to it kind of gets sludgy, right? So your body gets sludgy because we're made of so much water. So remember that one. The other one that I thought was an interesting article this week was artificial sweeteners are actually disrupting your gut microbiome, which we know about because if you've listened to me at all, I'm big on that. But it can also activate cells linked to what they call glioblastoma, which is actually a brain type cancer. So just remember that the fake sugars that I will keep harping on you guys for decades and decades. No doubt about it. Fake sugars are just as bad as some of these other chemicals that get into foods. We must start making our way away from them because they are really, really hurting us, just like the seed oils, right? So right now in topics, seed oils are a big deal. Fake sugar should be up there just because of their addictive nature and what they can do to you. So remember those two before we talk. All right. So remember, if you like those kind of topics, like where we just go through articles, you can send me them too, right? So you can message me or, do any of that stuff. If you have an article you want me to post on Whole Health Weekly, we can talk about it as well. So with that said, let's get into it tonight. All right. We're going to talk about back to pain free, tackling shoulder blade and spine pain head on. All right. So hopefully I will give you some good tips and tricks tonight because these are tips and tricks. It doesn't mean it always works, but I'll give you reasons, like things you can do at home though, which would be fantastic. All right. What are we going to go over tonight is the mechanics behind this. Okay. So we want to know how it's actually occurring. Why do we get these things? I don't want you to just know how to treat it because that doesn't help anyone. We need to understand the mechanics of why people have pain between the shoulders in the first place. Okay. What are some of the movements we can do to improve this area? Focusing on everyday movements. That's what we'll go over tonight. And some treatments that can make a big difference. So that is what we're doing. And where does this type of pain come from? Okay, so pain always has a reason for being there. We have to figure that out. Okay, so tight muscles are dumb. Okay, so when you look at muscles, if you think about it, they're reactionary. Okay, so muscles are technically reactionary unless you overdo the muscle. But in general, that is very hard to do. The muscles, unless you have an extreme thing, extreme trauma or, something like that, the muscles basically go where they're needed or how they move in mechanics. So one of the problems is that we get muscle knots anyway. So what's that about? Right. And we're going to go through that as far as how it goes. Using the example maybe right now of an alignment of your car. Okay. So a lot of these knots and trigger points and pains that get between your shoulders are an imbalance that has occurred. And our job is to figure out how to get there. Okay. Pain always comes from that inflammation and the nerve pain behind those muscles, initiating this process that we now want to improve. Okay. So for my podcast audience, I have a picture of the behind your shoulder blades skeleton. Okay. So we have the spine is in the middle there, and then you have your shoulder blades on either side. Now, what's cool about this picture is it shows you where the issue is. So if you can get in there, so next to the spine, actually attached in that same area, are where your ribs attach. So your ribs attach in the back area as well, right? So you have a lot going on in between your shoulder blades. You have your shoulder blades that have to be in there, right? Then you have these ribs that are back there. And then you got your spinal bones that are in there, right? That's a lot of stuff. Now we're going to go through what the muscles look like back there, because it's pretty intense. So here's another picture of just where the shoulder blades are supposed to sit, right? Relative to your upper back vertebrae and your ribs there. Okay. So check that out. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And so what that does is, in my world, in the chiropractic world, that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. There's many joints, because there's a joint between your vertebrae and your rib as well, right? Where those kind of meet and are allowed to have movement back there. So we want to make sure that all this is working right, or else we start having issues. Okay. All right. So here's another picture I found. I thought this was pretty good. Just in the muscles, because I want you to visualize the different muscle masses. So for my podcast audience, again, the trapezius muscle runs from the very top of your skull, like on the back side of your skull, and it runs all the way down through your vertebrae, all the way to the lower part of your rib cage. And it makes this cool like triangle, or actually it's like a diamond shape. And part of the trapezius muscle, this huge muscle, attaches into your shoulders, right? And the outside parts of your shoulders. Okay. So it's a huge, massive muscle that looks, as I always think of it, as a kite. It looks like a giant kite. Okay. So now so then there's these other muscles called rhomboids. The rhomboids are these little ones that attach your shoulder blade right to your spine, and they're super powerful as well. And those are pretty important as well. They're all pretty important, and then the last one I'm going to show you is the levator scapula. So the levator scapula is this muscle that literally runs from your shoulder blade, the tip of your shoulder blade, to the back of your neck. Okay. So these are super important because, one, we don't know that they're back there, right? And look and kind of visualize, if you have one shoulder that's not as high as the other, what's going to happen in the muscle world? If I have one shoulder that's lower than the other, what's going to happen? It's going to cause a kind of unevenness that kind of goes through that. And that's a big deal, right? If we have some unevenness between these two shoulders, we might have some major issues going forward. Okay. So hopefully I'm lining this up good for you guys. So I appreciate your patience with me. Okay. So let's talk about that last one before we get into that. So if I have these, just those three, there's many other muscles that attach in your shoulders that like lead up into your neck, right? Your neck. And then from not only just your neck, it goes all the way down to where your rib cage stops and your low back begins. So that's a huge area. Now, if I take my shoulders that have essentially a complex, right? So there's in a shoulder, in how to move your shoulder, right? The reason there is all this movement of your shoulder is you have this thing called the collarbone in the front that you can feel, right? You have this shoulder blade that has a little cup, right? So that shoulder blade is there. Plus, you also have the thing that we always think about as our shoulder is the humerus. You literally have to have three bones move perfectly to give you good motion in your shoulder. Okay. So what that does is that, and here's the crazy part. I'll give you a little side note that a lot of people, you'll find if you ever doing trivia, family trivia night, what is the first bone to actually ossify as a baby? Does anyone know? It's the collarbone. You know why? Because the only thing attaching your shoulder to the rest of your body is basically the collarbone. The other one, the shoulder blade and the humerus, are actually both essentially free floating. Okay. So because that scapula and the shoulder or the humerus are free floating, the collarbone makes it a pretty essential piece to making sure that these shoulders, which weigh about 50 pounds a piece, okay? So you have these 50-pound at least weights on either side, and we have to keep this balance. And if you were watching, you have the spine and you have all these muscles, and if all of those muscles are balanced, we're not going to have a lot of pain there, right? But the moment they get imbalanced from side to side, like you see people with their shoulder up or their shoulder down, I have a few examples coming up, but their shoulder like high or low, that's going to cause these type of issues. And there's a lot of things that can cause that shoulder to be high or low. You can have a shoulder injury itself, right? So you can have a shoulder injury itself. You can have a spinal misalignment, what we call a subluxation. You can have this spine being off kilter, leading to this shoulder imbalance, what then starts leading to, headaches, all kinds of type of stuff, right? So you can have quite a few different mechanics. So I don't want to go into every single reason it happens, except for if your shoulders are not balanced from one side to the other. Very simple test. We'll go into your mirror, close your eyes, stand and say, I'm balanced, and look and see if there's a shoulder difference. Okay. If there's one higher than the other, or have a loved one actually just put their hands on your shoulders and feel, are they the same? Seems like a good little easy one. The other one I want you to think about, and this one's happening more and more in society, is front to back. Okay. So that's what this next slide is front to back, which what I mean by that is forward head posture. Okay. How is your body compared to the rest of your body? So in a perfect world, I always like starting with normal because that makes sense. Your ears should be over your shoulders. Your shoulders should be over your hips. Your hips should be kind of in the middle of your feet. Okay. If I'm off either too far forward or too far backwards, we're going to have pressures on that spine, those ribs, everything else in different positions that can cause those issues. Is chiropractic the only way to put it back? No, that's what tonight's about. Chiropractic can help you for sure get to those points. But once you start seeing this stuff, on a regular basis, you can see, oh my gosh, almost everybody has a little bit of something, in these areas, especially now that we're desk jobs, we're sitting at a table, we're sitting forward too much, those kind of things. All right. So here is what forward head posture looks like. And for my podcasters, I got a slide with forward head posture. If it's a normal position where your ears are over your shoulders, it's still your head weighs 12 pounds. Okay. Check this out. If my head is not over my shoulders and it's forward 2 inches from in front of your shoulders, now your head weighs 32 pounds. Oh, check it out. This is the more common one. This is what's crazy. Guess what's the most common out of these? The 3 inches forward. The 3 inches forward. So your ears are 3 inches ahead of your shoulders. That actually leads to 42 pounds. Okay. So now that we've seen this, let's go back a slide or two. Let's go to this one. Now, if we have that head posture adding 42 pounds, where is that pressure going to go? Where do you think? If I have this muscle, this trapezius muscle that's actually attached and its job is to pull your head back, right? Pull your head into forward head posture, and I'm 3 inches ahead. Where is it going to start pulling from? It's going to pull from between your shoulder blades. Okay. And that's why we see it way more often than we used to. We used to see it. We still see it all the time because you can also hurt a shoulder, right? Or overuse a shoulder, the mechanics of the shoulder. And that causes the unevenness basically from side to side, one shoulder or the other. But now we're seeing this forward head posture pulling basically essentially all the upper back situation to where it needs to stress out. And when it does that, causes that pain to be in there. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So the forward head posture is a big thing to work on as well. All right. So that is what we're going to do tonight, hopefully in a good way. All right. So here's a good example on your screen and my podcasters. There, I got a picture of a spine, a guy with a very crooked, basically what they call a scoliosis. The scoliosis on the screen is just up there to show you the difference in a low shoulder and if you can kind of visualize now that trapezius being this perfect diamond that attaches from the top of your head to the lower and to your shoulders. And if I take that diamond and I make it uneven, what happens to the muscles there, right? You're going to have tighter muscles on one side, looser muscles on the other. A good way to think about this, and we talk about it at the office a lot. Imagine walking. Let's use your lower back. Okay. Let's say you have, and your pelvis is kind of set up the exact same way. So your pelvis is supposed to be this nice bowl and it kind of rotates and it's like perfect, right? But what happens if you get a hamstring? One of your hamstrings is tight and the other hamstring isn't. So every time you walk, it's torquing on that pelvis or that bowl that's supposed to be level like that, right? So with that hamstring being like that, you can still move, but it's going to limit your ability. Same thing with your shoulders, right? The shoulders back and forth. Now I have a tightness back there, and I'm going to cause alterations throughout the upper spine because of these different unevenness. Like if one shoulder's higher than the other, that means there's a tight part of that trapezius or rhomboid, and then there's a loose one. And so when those two, as you're starting to walk and gain motion, they'll start to, one's tight, one's not. Right. So it's super important that we start to understand where this comes from, especially if you suffer with it a lot. And if there's anybody out there that suffers with this quite a bit, put a thumb up or a heart or something. That would be amazing. I'm hoping this will do you some good as we go, because there's a lot you can do. Okay. Now that we understand how this mechanical part starts, how do we fix it? So the first thing I'm going to recommend is understanding those mechanics. And the best way to do this, there's two. If you have a loved one that's willing to do it, video yourself. You can tell by the internet, we're not too hard up about videoing ourselves anymore. Maybe back in the day we were. But, you can erase it. You know what I mean? So set up your camera, maybe on the ground, and walk away from your camera. See yourself from behind, right? Or if you have a loved one, have them say, all right, I'm going to start walking. Video yourself walking. Now, what I want you to do with that is start to evaluate how you look. Is one shoulder higher than the other? Is one leg, is one hip higher than the other? All of those things are super important. I thought of this when Lexi and I were out playing golf. We were like, everybody had stuff to do. Rachel had some, Allie did. And we're like, you want to go golfing? Let's do it. So she gets out there, and halfway through, she was like, and it was like, Rachel always gets mad at me, but I love the 90-degree days for some reason to go golfing. So Lexi's out there and she's getting a little hot. So she takes it easy. Well, unbeknownst to me, when we started, when she wasn't playing, she decided to video me swinging a golf club. What was funny about that shot is it sucked. The shot sucked. I was like, oh man. Well, then she goes, check this out, Dad. And then I watched the shot, right? And it was like instant. I knew exactly what I did. I like bent my elbow when I shouldn't have. And then the rest of the round was fantastic. I'm like, video me again. See if I'm doing that correctly. So being critiqued of yourself, using the tool that you have, all of us have it. We're walking around with it every day. So why not do that? Right. So, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because really it all comes down to the mechanics, right? And they're all very fixable, but they're everyday things that you have to fix. Okay. So we have to know that let's say our walk is terrible for a low back. We have to know that, one shoulder's lower. What are we going to do about that? Right. So if we don't know those things, then the back thing becomes this mystery that no one understands. And then they're like, oh crap, I got to do this. But with a video, it can give you a lot of information. And I don't know somebody that doesn't have the video camera in their pocket anymore. So it's super easy. Remember that. And then understanding the mechanics. If I am uneven from one side or the other, and the other video to take is you walking from the side. So put it on the side, walk by the camera. Are you forward head posture? Are you? I don't know. Do you have to wait until you get to a master doctor to figure this stuff out? No. You got a video camera right there. So walk by that. Oh my God, I'm 4 inches ahead. My head posture's way ahead. Okay, well then let's start looking at stuff to fix that. And that's what tonight's all about. Okay. And now the other biggest one, big one is going to be, we want to strengthen. We want to strengthen our shoulders and that in that whole area, because one of the biggest mistakes that we make is that strength training in itself, not bodybuilding necessarily, is probably one of the most important things you'll ever do as 1% Tribe. If you're not lifting something, then I haven't done my job, because you should be lifting some type of weight. Okay. You want to make yourself stronger as you can without overdoing it. Right. So one of the things that happens is we have to get our shoulders stronger. We have to. The amount of people that cannot do a push-up. I had a kid this week. He's probably going into 6th grade. By that time, our kids should be able to do 10 push-ups pretty good. This kid couldn't do one. And that scared me, because he is going to grow and that muscle density won't be there. And if he's already hurting now, what's he going to be, feeling, in 10 to 20 years, right? Because the shoulder strength is going to be huge, because it can also show you your imbalances, right? If your left is a little weaker than your right, and you keep working that left until they're about even, the human body is amazing. It will help you rebalance and recharge all of that stuff. Okay. So get a mechanics coach in your life. That's the other way. So you can always come to your chiropractor and we can walk you through like what that looks like. Bring the video into us. I have no issue with that. Show me like, these different ones, and we can show you like the different mechanical things to work on. And it gives you such a good direct, maybe some of you aren't into weightlifting or exercise in general, but what if it was about improving your whole function of your spine and mechanics? It's very simple, right? You can do so many things, like so many easy things. And that's what's so nice. And if you do it every day with a focus on that, you'll actually notice a massive difference. I see it every day. All right. All right. So let's walk you through these moves that I want to talk about the upper back piece. Okay. So now that we know how the blah, 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 here are some great beginning moves. And most of us should be able to do most of these. Okay. So my first one is called the dead man's hang. Now, I was going to put a video, but it's pretty easy to describe it. A dead man's hang is essentially getting near a pull-up bar of some sort and essentially hanging. So you're just going to hang from that bar. Now, some of you are not going to be ready for just hanging off the bar. Okay. A dead man's hang is super powerful. It improves your grip strength. It balances your shoulders, and that's what we're going to talk about. But it improves that upper body strength in general. What I want you to do in the beginning, though, is just hang with a little weight. So have like a chair or something that supports the rest of your body, but you're going up there to grab it. Think about when you're a kid and you just jumped on the monkey bars. Man, this one always brings back. I remember the dead man's hang, but then remember how easy it was to do a pull-up. So I remember all of us, God, we were like third or fourth grade, and we had this one play set. Can't believe we did this, but we would climb up to the top of the pull-up bar, get on top of that thing, try to stand on it just enough time to jump and then grab the other side with the monkey bars. It was crazy. But that one was always stuck to my head. Like I literally did that because I remember doing, I was kind of a monkey, which is weird. I absolutely loved that part. I was like, ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm going to bring that back up, Brian, too. So stretch, turmeric, which we will talk about tonight, and elastic bands work. So we're going to go into what Brian's talking about with the elastic bands as well. But one of the things that you can do is a dead man's hang. Now, you don't need a pull-up bar necessarily. Just grab the frame of your door and kind of just hold, right? So you're just kind of holding and allowing your body to kind of decompress and to unwind as you go. So you're gonna do that for as many breaths as you possibly can, getting as high as you can, allowing that breath to go in and out. One of the things that you're feeling for when I do that, do my shoulder blades feel even on the back side of my body? So do you feel like an evenness between your shoulder blades? The other thing that's going to happen possibly is you'll hear cracky poppy noises. Cracky poppy noises can happen. And because your body needs those ribs to move back and forth to breathe, it makes sense that if you did that and you really concentrated on trying to breathe through essentially the pain of holding on to that, you can make yourself a really, really good one. And I got one video that I'll show you. Let's say I want to call it, I think it's called downward dog or child's pose, but it's a stretch from yoga that you can use as well. So, but some of those stretches are so important but when you're in those stretches, you want to feel balance. You want to feel what it feels like. Is my right shoulder tighter than my left when I'm doing that, right? That tells you a lot. And that will help you start to even out, especially if you start doing it every day. Okay, so that's dead man's hang. So remember that. It's just hanging off a bar, essentially. Okay, so this one I want to go through with you. So this one, oh man, I think I can do it. I'm going to back up from the microphone. So hopefully you guys can hear. All right. So this one I like to call You Want to Live Longer. I learned this from, his name's Dr. Chestnut. He is a chiropractor in Canada, and this one is fantastic. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to keep your ears over your shoulders, okay? And we're going to do essentially what they call the YMCA, but ours is going to be called You Want to Live Longer, okay? So our first move is that we're going to make the Y, but we're going to take our thumbs and we're going to drive backwards, okay? Sitting is a little weird. Okay, so this is the Y. So we're going to go as far as we can, trying to keep your ears in between your shoulders. But the big piece of this is you're pinching your shoulder blades tight behind you. Okay, so this is the Y. Now we're going to go down to the want. So you want, and then you're going to come down. And I'm a little off of the camera because the camera's over there a little bit. So this is the W, right? So the W in there, and you're pinching your shoulder blades back. Okay. So you're creating a W. That is weird on the camera. Okay. So there's that, right? So you want, so you're pinching hard. Ears are behind you, or ears over your shoulders. Now we're going to go to 2. Okay. Usually I'd recommend doing this standing. So this is the T and the 2. So you want 2. Okay. T. And then you're pinching them even tighter back there, right? Now we're going to bring we're going to drive one of our elbows into our rib cage, and that's going to be the live longer. So live, make an L with this hand, longer. And then you're pinching tight back there, breathing as you go. Your ears are over your shoulders, and then you just let go. And if anybody did that with me, you almost instantly get more oxygen. I love that. If you missed it, go back to my Rumble channel and subscribe, because I'm up to 55 people on that. But you want to live longer. Okay. I'll put it in the chat just to make sure you guys see it. Oh, you to live. This will change your life. Thank you, Dr. Chestnut, for that one. Okay, so that's a really good one. I recommend that every morning. I have this joy of getting lucky and getting to do it every day, many times a day, because I get to show it as a chiropractic, thing that we do all the time. The other one is neck rotations. Okay. So now that we know that forward head posture is a big part of that upper back stuff, we want to make sure that we're getting back there. So my first one that I didn't bring up is one of the things that's a super easy evaluation tool is stand against the wall. Okay. So take your whole body and stand against the wall. Okay. Once you do that, and you just put every joint on your body. Let me, hopefully I can explain it without going into the YouTube video stuff. But so you're just putting your entire back, your heels against the wall, all the way up, and make your head touch the back of the wall. Okay. Once you're up there and just standing against the wall, feel what that feels like. Feel what that feels like. And then you take 5 breaths there, and then walk forward and try to keep that same posture. That is an easy 1% tribe one. That is fantastic. Like throughout, because it gives you a great self-evaluation. Is my head too far forward still? Right. And so that's a very good one. If you have trouble with the head posture, this is where these come in. So neck rotations and side bends are just a few that you can do, but neck rotations are pretty important. You want to make sure that you're rotating one side to the other, back and forth. Now, when you do that, you want to touch where it gets strenuous back there. Okay. These are just things we're going to do. PT, you've probably been through some PT. They have a lot more complicated ones, but I want to stay away from complicated. You're going to do it ones. Okay. That's what we're going to stick with. So if I turn my head to one side, so right now on the camera, it's left, but I'm really turning right. What I want to do is do another evaluation. Do I see my shoulder, and where do I see my shoulder? Right. And then I turn my head to the left and I say, do I see the same area of my shoulder, or is it a different location? Once you do that, then you can say, okay, one side's tighter than the other, right? Tonight, because of my workout, I have a little more right shoulder tightness. And so what I would do is continue to do that a little bit back and forth, probably 10 times, right? Now, the other one you can do is side bends. So side bends are super important. I really, really like these. So you're taking your ear and touching your shoulder, taking your other ear, touching your other shoulder. So you're just back and forth, right? Back and forth. You're trying to stretch that big muscle I was telling you about, that trap and that latissimus dorsi back there. So you have these two huge muscles, right, that are attaching back in that area. And we really want that trap. How is the tightness? So for me, because of that workout I did, I can feel it more so this side's good, but when I pull, I can feel it a little bit here. The workout I did was pretty intense. It was a dumbbell move with one arm. And so you're going through it, and those kind of ones really help me balance personally. Now that I'm at that kind of level with that stuff, I'm in love, but you can definitely tell when there's a weakness there. Okay. So those are a couple of good ones. Oh, and of course, little circles, big circles. So little circles, big circles are just taking your arms, going forward, but with little tiny circle movements, and then backwards with little tiny circle movements. And then you go until you kind of feel it in your shoulders, and then you go big, and you do the same thing, forward and backwards. Okay, so with this conversation that we're having, why am I showing you neck, shoulder stretches? Exactly. The problem that we'll always have in our sick care model is we keep going after the spot that hurts. Okay. One of the things that everybody does, first thing we do, we take a trigger point ball and we jam it into that area. Why? You don't know why it's happening. So what are you accomplishing other than maybe it doesn't hurt for a minute? If I push on that area, that it works great. The trigger point therapies of those, rolling on a roller, exercise roller ball, those are all great. They all are, but they're not telling you the why. Okay. Stretching can help you tell you the why. And that's why you have to get in your brain. Okay. Get in your brain. I can therapy gun you with these new therapy guns all day. That's no problem. Beat the crap out of it. Feels amazing. You will feel better. People use lacrosse balls and roll on the ground, or golf ball, or tennis balls. They use those big those foam rollers. What the biggest difference is, though, we're here to learn on how to prevent these things from occurring again, not treat them. Treating them, absolutely, do all those things, right? But I feel like we need to know why. If my shoulder is off 1 degree and then I keep beating it with the trigger point, does that change it? Or does it change when we look at our mechanics of walking, or, when we do dead man's hang and you actually feel which shoulder's kind of messing up on you? Or when you go against the wall and your head's back now, my forward head posture is the messed up part, right? So those are the things that you have to focus on. And one of the things that happens in our sick care is we go right after the location, thinking it hurts right here. It must be the only part of me that hurts. Can't be from anywhere else. I always have the story because it probably happens once a week. And this is a shout out. Well, I was listening to a podcast, Joe Rogan. If you ever need a good chiropractor, let me know. He has nothing but sometimes he has nothing good to say about chiropractic, which I'm very sad for, because he was telling the story on his neck, and I could tell you guaranteed I knew what the problem was. A lot of neck injuries, a lot of headaches, a lot of migraines. They actually have nothing to do with the neck. It has to do with the upper back mechanics. And so that's one of the problems, is like if his upper back mechanics were off and they just stepped raping on his neck, you ain't going to get anywhere. And that's why it's so critical and into understanding it's the balance of the human body that the intelligence within our body can do something with. When we're imbalanced, that creates a lack of that communication, creating us major problems. So those are the things to kind of focus on. Oh, hopefully I wasn't too soapboxy. Let me know in the chat if I got a little soapbox on that. Sorry. Hopefully that'll be worth it. Okay. So some of the things, hopefully that was helpful tonight. Like just those moves. I want to give you guys simple tools, and we'll go back to this. Of course, I'll do another video on some other really cool ones. Oh, I want to show you a couple stretches before we get to this slide, actually. Let me bring it up. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. So I'm going to show you a couple video. Okay, here we go. Share screen. So before we go, I found a pretty good video.
Senior fitness editor. I've spent over a...
Okay. So let's go. Okay. So what we want to do, I want to get to this one because it's quite easy. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see this. This is one of my favorite exercises to do in this frame, because if the dead man's hang's not something you want to do, she's going to walk through this pretty easy. All right. Yeah, this is why I put the video. All right, let's get to doing it. All right. So this one's a really good one. It's like the cat. So you're pushing your spine all the way up and then blow it all the way out. I would recommend also, though, is your head goes back. Okay, there we go. Right. So you want to get breathing up, all the way up, and all the way down. Oh, man. Where's the other one? All right. Sorry. So that one was good. Maybe it was back here. Oh, here's a good one. Okay. So let's start here. So here's another one. Let's get to it. Okay. So here's another one I really like, because this will show you your movement of your arms. So see, it's the same idea where I told you to go against the wall. If you get on the floor and do that with your shoulders, you can feel, right? We're feeling the mechanical differences. That's really what we're going after, right? So that is a really good way. It sounds so easy, and it looks very easy, but once you feel that your shoulders aren't correct, that could be an issue. Okay. So sorry about that. I don't want to get hit with any kind of copyright stuff. I just like grabbing a few minutes of like these different ones because they do a good job. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there, guys, that are fantastic in these kind of things. Look up upper back pain stretches and you'll find quite a few to add. But the problem is like I don't want to add so many that you won't do them, right? And so there's so many simple ones that you can get done that can really, really change your perspective and understand it's the difference between the two sides. Right? It's the difference between front and back. It's the balance part. When the balance happens, then good health starts happening, and your intelligence within your body will be able to keep those rib areas in place, and all of those kind of things. Oh, good. Sue says it was great. I learned a lot of things to try. Good. So it wasn't overwhelming. And then we'll actually go back to Brian's here too on his, he says he stretches. And I know this, he does this. And we'll talk about this as well in just a minute. But elastic bands are fantastic for the strengthening part, right? You don't have to lift. You don't have to lift weights all the time. But oh my God, there's elastic bands out there, super light. What if you went through and did a full shoulder routine prior to leaving the house? How about taking those same elastic bands and doing squats? That's it. You're done for the day. You've lifted. You've resistance exercised. Some of the biggest guys I know, I don't know if Brian knows this. Dude, I got to show you. He pulls it off the market, but that if anyone's seen this guy named Brock Lesnar, he's a wrestler, UFC guy. All he does is resistance band training. It is wild. He'll put hooks on the wall and just go through those resistance bands. You can get just. I have wanted to do that for probably this winter. I'm going to set up my workout barn to have different resistance bands because you don't need a lot. Rachel has a little system. Yeah, he uses resistance bands, Brian. He's an absolute monster. He just aggressively uses the resistance bands over what me and you do. But Rachel has this thing. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically this long strap with a hook. It's got like a carabiner type hook, and it's so long that you can do a ton of movements just with this rope on the wall. It's fantastic. I'll take a video of it next time to show you because that thing will kick your butt. And, it's just, you don't have to have an entire gym or go to a gym. A lot of these things you can get done, right? So with that said, here are the last few recommendations. Of course, chiropractic is a no-brainer for these kind of issues because it does help quite a bit to get the joints of the body back to functional self. But why do they keep coming back? We have to look at that. Soft tissue therapy. There's a tissue therapy called gua sha. It's amazing. It's where they basically scrape the scar tissue away, helping you reheal, and then leading you to the next stage where you could actually make your muscles relearn, right, into the correct posture. Cold laser really works good. Really works good for my people that are super chronic on this area. Video walking yourself, please do that. Bring it into the office. Have one of us chiropractors look at that because it's fantastic. Okay. So it's fantastic to just get the feedback and we can show you what we're looking at. Okay. Eat clean. One of the things that helps is understanding your herbals. So if you haven't gone back to what the golden milk is, turmeric, great anti-inflammatory, huge thing in pain reduction and anti-inflammatory. Turmeric, ginger, bromelain, tons of anti-inflammatories out there, but that's what Brian uses is turmeric. His job is one that's physical and going to give him upper back problems of it sometimes, but if he maintains that stuff, he's going to make a big difference over the years to come. All right. Get rid of pro-inflammatory foods, right? So quit doing seed oils and all the fake sugars and everything else that kick our inflammation process way up there because then it gets out of control and then it gets super annoying. This area of the spine is rough. It's rough because of the pain that it induces and the annoying pain that it induces. And I will not say that is not a true thing. And then by the end of your journey, if you have this, I want you to be able to do some push-ups, some full push-ups. Okay. We got to get to that point. My ladies, we got to get to that point. My guys, we got to get to that point. You don't have to do 200. I want one. One will balance that shoulder girdle out. See, here's the problem. And Rachel and I went through this today. If you want to lift in Rachel's case is a great example. If I want to chop giant trees and lumberjack all these different areas in landscaping and everything else that she likes to do, if she can't do a push-up, we're going to have problems to the outset Because some of these trees are heavier. Some of these tree branches are going to be heavier than you. Right? So prepare yourself for the things you want to do. Brian, it's very interesting. I want to ask, but with his job, he's throwing around lawnmowers and all kinds of stuff, right? I want him strong enough to be able to throw that thing without getting hurt, right? And that is your trick. So tonight, I hope you enjoyed it. It's about the why, right? It's not about the treatment necessarily at the time. Lots of good treatments out there for it, right? Lots of good treatments, right? But the problem is if you don't understand the why, you're going to keep treating it. And then we'll be just like, it'll be the same as like if we were in our crappy healthcare system we currently have, where all we worry about is the symptom and we just keep taking things for the symptom. We don't want to do that. We want to get past that stuff. So with that said, you guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight. Don't forget about Wednesday night, right? Subscribe to my Rumble channel once again. I'm going to hit it up again. All right. Boom. I'm going to do that one. Let's do some YouTube. YouTube would be kind of fun. Theirs is pretty awesome. I just have to have the one just because of the censorship that occurred. And I just want to make sure I'm safe. I would hate to lose like all the stuff. So and of course, if you like listening to podcasts, here's our last one. So with that said, you guys, thank you for watching tonight. And I'll see you Wednesday night for Whole Health Weekly at 8:30. So with that said, have a great night.